Uh,
Oh, I think that was me, sorry.
yeah, yeah. So Alice, maybe we can, I see that we have one attendee. We start sharp in 20 minutes, and
Yeah.
would be best if we can, we stop sharing the screen and we start in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our webinar on precision nutrition, importance of optimizing mineral intelligence. My name is Dr. Chandni Parihar, and I head marketing for Nutreco India. At the outset, I would like to thank you on behalf of the entire team for joining us today. From the team present with me are Sorry about that. From the team present with me are Ms. Alice Hibbert and Mr. Sandeep Hundre, our speakers for the day, Dr. Sabiha Kadri, Dr. Brish Mohan, Dr. Sujit Kulkarni, and Ms. Sonali Day. A few guidelines for the audience before we proceed further to ensure that there are zero interruptions in your experience today. Please keep your audio on computer audio mode. Questions will be taken up in the end during question and answer round. However, you can raise your hand or type in your questions for us to know. Now we welcome our first speaker, Ms. Alice Hibbert, Global Program Manager, Trace Minerals. Ms. Alice graduated in Animal Science from the University of Reading in the UK, with post-graduation in Applied Poultry Science. Before moving to Trow Nutrition in 2015, she worked in feed compound industry. With an in-depth knowledge of practical nutritional support, Alice provides techno-commercial expertise for Asia and Oceania teams. Welcoming Ms. Alice to please present.
Hello, everybody. A very warm welcome to our webinar. Okay, so just share my screen. I think, Chandni, if you make me a presenter. Share my screen. Okay, excellent. Yeah. Right. So, how does this look now? Can you see my full screen, Chandni?
Yes, I can, but I can also see the dashboard. So if we can move
this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, very warm welcome, everybody. Thank you for bearing with us with those technical things whilst I was getting my screen shared. Okay, let's start with the topic of the day. So, as Dr. Chandni indicated, I've been with Trow Nutrition for quite a while. So my position within Trow Nutrition is providing technical and commercial support to our local teams within Cluster Asia, supporting our trace mineral portfolio and cascading the research and development that we do globally out into our local markets. I'm British by origin and very happy to be with you here today to talk about this important topic. Okay, I'd first like to start with talking about the key challenges that we see for trace mineral nutrition. And we as nutritionists face this all the time. So the first one is optimizing trace mineral supplementation. So are we fulfilling the animal's requirement for trace minerals? At the end of the day, trace minerals are just nutrients which the animals require to optimally grow and stay healthy and perform. So how are we matching these requirements in our diets? Secondly, we have these extra reactions that can happen in the feed, which trace minerals can significantly contribute to, causing negative impacts potentially on things like bioavailability or feed quality. Because many sources of trace minerals can be very reactive and potentially would interact with other things in the feed. Thirdly, the clue is in the name. Animals only require a trace level of these minerals in their diet for nutritional purposes. So because animals only require a small amount of trace minerals, how can we know for sure and guarantee that we're accurately adding the right amount of trace minerals to fulfill the animal's requirement?
Sorry, Alice. We received a request if you could Your screen has a split screen right now.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yes.
Split screen. So what can you see, Chandani?
I can see split screen, so I have the next
Ah,
animation. Yeah, perfect.
is this better? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. Right. Thank you for telling me that. Great. Okay. Right. So as I said, if we fulfill all of these challenges, if we can effectively fulfill the nutritional requirements, if we can minimize this reactivity that we get in the feed, we're going to be able to maximize feed quality, feed intake, and bioavailability. And also we can if we can make sure that we're accurately adding trace minerals, this gives us convenience and peace of mind, leading to optimal performance and return. So just going through these 3 challenges in a bit more detail now. So how do we know that that we're feeding the right level of trace mineral? Well, let's say that we're looking at this on a graph. So the nutritional need is here, this dotted line. This is the amount of trace mineral the animal needs. So let's say we supplement much, much higher than the animal's nutritional need, way up here. What we might actually have is the animals can only absorb a certain amount of trace mineral over the nutritional need. So therefore, this much trace mineral is wasted, and this much trace mineral is potentially causing toxic effect or negative interaction in the feed. However, very quickly, things can change. So if the animal is stressed or has some sort of health challenge, actually the requirement may increase up to here. And suddenly we're in a potential situation where the animal has a shortage of trace mineral. So this is very common situation to happen. So if you're, let's say, in the broiler cycle, if there's a health challenge, in the layer cycle, let's say the onset of lay or late lay, the animal's level of stress may increase, and therefore the animal's level of trace mineral requirement may increase, which means the animal can go from having actually too much trace mineral to not enough. So we need to, as nutritionists, learn how to balance these and understand what these nutritional requirements actually are. This is really, as I say, this is really much a challenge. What are we aiming for? Well, if we look at this graph here, so along the side is performance, and we'll see probability in a minute. Along the bottom here is trace element balance. So with trace elements, it's not necessarily more or less. We actually have to balance the requirements. So it's the net requirement, take away the available supply. And where we want to stay is in this area of positive homeostasis, which gets us good performance. If we have, we can see we may go into the area of subclinical toxicity or suboptimal supply, should we have poor trace element balance. Now I would introduce these other curves here. So this is representing the probability that a population of animals has a sufficient and optimal trace element balance. We can see this curve here for inorganic trace minerals is quite wide, and this everything under the curve represents all the animals in the population, and this really represents the huge variation in trace element balance, because these inorganic trace mineral sources are extremely variable. However, if we can optimize our trace mineral products, if we can feed higher bioavailability trace mineral products, this increases the probability of having good performance and the animals staying in this optimum balance area here. So, we've been talking about trace mineral challenges. We know that there's a number of different commercially available trace mineral sources out there in the industry. So for example, oxides and sulfates have been used historically to fulfill the animal's requirement. When we realized that animals needed supplemental trace minerals, because typically raw materials don't contain enough trace mineral to fulfill the animal's requirement. Then later on, the organic trace mineral was invented, which optimized bioavailability and reduced the reactivity that we see of these inorganic trace minerals. However, it came at a very high price. And then the next innovation in trace mineral nutrition was the hydroxy trace mineral. So essentially what we did with this product is we provided the same bioavailability and positive impact on reactivity at a reduced price, so that we could completely replace these oxides and these sulfates. Just leading on from this, when we were talking about trying to maximize feed quality, intake and bioavailability by reducing this reactivity. And we can see, I'll just play this again. So we can see there's clearly a reaction going on here in the copper sulfate. When we compare that to the hydroxy trace mineral, the Intellibond, we see that the product will sink to the bottom of the beaker here and have no interactions at all. So this is a very basic representation of the kind of interactions and reactions that are happening in the feed when we feed these inorganic sulfate sources of trace mineral, for example. And this is what is causing the negative impacts on feed quality, feed intake, and bioavailability. So let's look a little bit closer at what these interactions are actually doing. So let's use the zinc sulfate molecule as an example. So we can see that both zinc sulfate and copper sulfate, what's happening is when these products are going into solution, the reactive ion, so the zinc and the copper ions, are separating from the ligands, which is the sulfate in this case. What do? Well, they degrade other feed components. They can reduce palatability, and they can bind to antagonists in the feed. So these antagonists may be other nutrients, they may be anti-nutrients like phytic acid. So in reality, having large concentrations of these free divalent ions can be very damaging to your feed quality, palatability, and resulting in poor bioavailability. So what does this actually mean? What do we see? Well, if we look at the feed quality side, we've looked here at a trial measuring vitamin E in feed stored over a certain amount of time. If we look at the control with no copper added, we see extremely low level of vitamin E degradation over time, so very small reduction. When we add copper sulfate, because of these reactions I was just telling you about, we see a significant drop in our vitamin E level because vitamin E is degraded by these ions. 24% after 10 days, almost 70% after 41 days. And we see that essentially when we add a hydroxy trace mineral, such as Intellibond, we see that this effect is pretty much negated. So we see very, very similar results to our negative control. We also see this effect when we measure the plasma vitamin E as well. So the Intellibond copper will help to maintain a lot more vitamin E in the blood compared to copper sulfate as a result of these in-feed reactions. Also, feed intake. It's very, very important to notice that by feeding the inorganic trace minerals, we can see huge decreases in feed intake, especially when feeding high levels, increasing levels of trace mineral. However, we do not see the same effect with the hydroxy molecule because of the lower levels of reactivity of the molecule. Okay, so Over to you, Chandani. We're going to do our first poll question of the day.
So all the participants, you'll be able to see a poll on your screen now. Which form of trace mineral has the highest bioavailability? You can choose one of the options. We have the results of our poll, Alice, and the results are 2% voted for sulfates, 40% for organic, and 58% for hydroxy.
Excellent. Excellent. Good. Well, okay, that's interesting. So I think really some of you may have seen my slides before because well done. I'm glad the group have the correct answer. So when we look at bioavailability, we know that this is a number, relative bioavailability is a number which is often used to measure the success of a trace mineral source. When we look at these trace mineral sources, when we analyze, for example, the zinc in total tibia, in the presence of different trace mineral sources, we see that the Intellibond and the organic trace minerals have comparative and around 40 to 43% higher bioavailability than the sulfate trace minerals. So congratulations, everyone. Okay, and convenience and peace of mind. So as I said before, trace minerals are essential for productivity and well-being. However, they're a very small part of the complete feed. So comparatively to other raw materials, contribute a very small inclusion. It is a constant challenge to know whether they're being added accurately. And because of the significant costs, it's very important to ensure that accuracy level is very high of the addition. I'm just going to run you through some numbers. This is just a bit of fun here. So animals only require a very, very small amount to fulfill the nutritional requirements. So can we put a number on it? Can we quantify this? The average Ross 308 brooder eats 15 milligrams of zinc in the first week of life. How much is this? That's actually this much. So you can see that the source and especially the dispersion and the accuracy of adding these trace minerals is extremely important. How about after 42 days, for example? Well, the animals, the birds have only actually consumed 0.5 grams of zinc. We tried to find things that weighed 0.5 gram, and the thing we found was an office staple. So you can see that actually we're talking about very tiny amounts, so it's important to consider the source and the quality when you're applying trace minerals in your diet. Also, just to finish up this first section, it's important to also consider the absorption coefficients. So the NRC quotes for zinc sulfate around 20% and zinc oxide around 10%. But what does this actually mean to us? Well, of the entire molecule of zinc sulfate and zinc oxide, we can see that in the light blue here, the proportion that is present as zinc. So the dark blue is just the ligand. So this is the oxide and this is the sulfate. When we take this proportion of zinc, for example, and then we actually break it down and take out our 20 and our 10%. For sulfate, from 1 milligram, from 100 milligrams, we're only getting around 7.27 milligrams absorbed. And from zinc oxide of 100 milligrams, we're only getting about 7.8 milligrams absorbed. So even though we're adding very, very tiny amounts, we're also absorbing only a very small proportion of that. So it's important to consider the source of trace mineral you're using that's maximizing your bioavailability. Okay, so we've talked about the challenges. Now we want to talk about the solution. So I'll introduce to you today our topic of the day and our latest innovation, which is our IntelliOpt concept. So you remember I showed you a slide showing you the newest technologies in trace mineral nutrition, being the hydroxy and the organic trace mineral. We as Trouw Nutrition, as a nutritional market leader, have managed to harness the potential of both of these trace mineral sources and put it together into one technology, which we've coined IntelliOpt. What is this doing? Well, we're helping our customers to optimize their trace mineral strategy by giving by sharing the science that we have and the knowledge that we have on the levels that the animals require. We're helping to guarantee that the animals' trace mineral requirements will be fulfilled, and we're delivering optimized species-specific formulations for improved performance and well-being whilst preserving the environment. So, okay, we're having the next poll, Chandani, if you don't mind. Thank you.
The next poll would be visible on all your screens now. The question is, what is the newest generation of mineral technology? We have our results here. The results are 26% voted for hydroxy, 74% voted for organic plus hydroxy combination, 0 votes for oxides and organic.
Great, great. Okay, great. Thanks, guys. Really, really nice input there. Okay, so I'm going to show you again this this slide. And as I said, we'd like to introduce to you IntelliOpt. So as I said, this is really harnessing the benefits of both the organic and the hydroxy trace mineral technology that we have as Trouw Nutrition. And we've seen these really nice synergies between using these two technologies in our global validation and research that we do every day. So just a small bit of detail about both of these technologies and how they work. So first of all, just reintroducing our IntelliOpt. So there's 3 crystalline products we have within our range. So we have the Kempite, the Simonkeallite, and the Atacamite, which are the manganese, the zinc, and the copper. They're characterized by having a high metal potency, and the product has a low solubility, neutral pH. This means that it has very minimal reactivity in feed, and the structure allows the product to have slow, lower GI tract release, which maximizes its bioavailability completely. Okay, just a little bit more detail about IntelliBond and hydroxy trace mineral structure. So within this structure, we have stretched covalent bonds. So it's not ionic bonds like with the inorganic trace minerals. It is a stretched covalent bond within our crystalline matrix. We have these subunits that repeat and repeat and form this matrix here. The really important thing about this structure is that above a pH of 4, it is stable, and below a pH of 4, it is soluble. So in feed, no interactions will happen at all all reactions until the pH drops below a pH of 4 in the stomach, at which point the layers within the structure start to peel away and release the trace minerals within the structure. Gives us our high bioavailability. So OptiSize technology as well, we harness this within our product, which gives us a very low dust and very high uniformity when mixing. Onto our Proteinate organic trace mineral technology. And the very important thing to say here is that Optimin has superior bond strength, which improves our bioavailability, which means we're providing the maximum amount of trace mineral to the animal's bloodstream as possible. So it's important to note that within our structure, there is multiple attachment points of the short chain protein with our trace mineral in the center, you can see there. And also within our production process, 22 different amino acids compete for binding with this trace element ion, which means that only the strongest combinations will remain. So our bonds are specific and have multiple attachment points, which gives us this highest bioavailability. Hey, Nandini, our final poll of the day. Please take it away.
So as Alice said, our last poll for the day, where are the trace minerals absorbed?
We're testing your nutritional knowledge now, everybody. I have full confidence in all of you.
And we have our responses now. 73% for small intestine, 25% high gut, 2% crop.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I think 73% of you got the correct answer. So congratulations. On to the next. Right, so we've been talking about organic and hydroxy technology. And what we see when we combine these two technologies together is a complementary release profile. So first of all, I just want to say a small bit about the sulfate trace minerals or zinc oxide trace minerals, for example. So when we utilize these inorganic trace minerals, we have large concentration of these charged metal ions early in the GI tract. Now, we know that the feed has gone through very hostile environment, high temperature, high steam, high moisture, possibly extrusion, and then these extruded pellets are passing into the early GI tract, where there's lots and lots of mechanical and chemical digestion initiated. As a result, we see these reactions causing these trace minerals to go into solution with the reaction I showed you earlier with the beaker. What are the implications of this? Well, the implications are loss of vital nutrients. So our charged metal ions will react with these nutrients, other nutrients in the feed, because of this high level of reactivity, which means we're losing bioavailability. The picture is slightly different when we look at our hydroxy and organic combination. So the Intellibond minerals have a slightly different release profile in that they stay completely inert and unreactive in the feed. So throughout the feed production process, throughout the early GI tract, and they only start to release and become soluble in the stomach. This process starts, but because of the layers within the structure, we have a slow release concept all down the small intestine, which incidentally is where the trace minerals, majority of the trace minerals are absorbed. Then we have Optimin trace minerals. I think a lot of us are familiar with the release and absorption profiles of these trace minerals. So we see actually when the proteinate trace minerals pass into the small intestine, because of the preferential strength of the bonds between the intestinal transporters and the trace minerals than with the ligands, they will reach out and pull the trace mineral out of the matrix through into the bloodstream. So we see absorption happening wherever there are intestinal transporters, which largely speaking is sort of early to mid small intestine, but can happen all the way along the tract here. So we have started to see this synergy between hydroxy and organic trace minerals in our data, and this complementary release profile is our explanation for why we see these benefits. Okay, so I'd now just like to run you through 2 trials we have done looking at this synergy, because obviously I can talk all day about science and theory, but what you all probably want to know is what is the value that you see for your businesses and for your animals. So first of all, this was both very new trials we did during 2020. We worked with the University of Sydney to understand in broilers, if we look at inorganic trace minerals, a competitor, organic competitor, and also our IntelliOpt concept product, what is the results that we're going to see? So just a small summary. When we look at FCR, we saw a number of different things. So the inorganic treatment gave us the worst FCR. We see that actually the organic blend gave the next best FCR, but overall our organic and our hydroxy combination concept IntelliOpt gave us the best FCR at nutritional levels. So what we worked out was IntelliOpt has a 7-to-1 return on investment compared to the inorganic. So what I'm saying here is, even though there is a much smaller investment for inorganics, the value that you're getting in FCR is very, very significant. And over the organic competitor, we are getting a 4-to-1 return on investment. So again, potentially higher input costs, but we are getting a much better return on investment and value for your business. Okay, so you may be thinking, great, in the University of Sydney, that works, but what's happening in my country, in India? Well, with the help of our fantastic OPCO team, led by Sabiha, we did a trial to really understand what the benefits of this is in your market in India. We did a similar treatment setup. So we did complete inorganic trace minerals, our IntelliOpt Poultry Flex, and our organic competitor. So it's worth mentioning, I guess, that we applied a challenge to mimic commercial conditions as we did in the previous trial, measured all of the normal growth parameters. And our aim really here is to understand, are we going to see the same effect in your local conditions? Well, the answer is that we did. So we see actually, when we look at the inorganic, when we look at total body weight, we saw the poorest was from the inorganic and the competitor organic blend, and the best was what we saw from the IntelliOpt. With the FCR, we saw, in fact, that the worst was the inorganic, and we had very competitive and comparative results with the existing market-leading organic blend. So as a result, when we ran the numbers, IntelliOpt had a 4-to-1 return on investment compared to inorganic, and a 2-to-1 return on investment on the organic blend. So of course, we have a lot more information we can share with you on these. I wanted to just pull out some really top level highlights for you here. So please don't hesitate to get in touch with our teams who can give you a lot more information about this work that we did. So in order to conclude my presentation for today, I'd like to just share with you some take-home messages. So it's a challenge to identify the right level of trace mineral, reduce reactivity, and accurately add the right amount of trace mineral. We all know that. You know, as nutritionists, as specialists in our area, we know that this is a challenge that we need to face, and we need to face it with science, I guess. So by optimizing the source and form of trace mineral, these challenges can be mitigated. So what form are we using? How much are we using? How are we adding it? All of these questions need to be asked and considered. So from the data from our work that we do globally, we see the synergy between the hydroxy and organic technologies, which will help us to optimize bioavailability with a complementary release profile in the gut. Finally, IntelliOpt trace minerals are the latest generation of trace mineral nutrition, backed up by science, and globally validated with our research partners. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alice, for such a wonderful presentation. And we do have a lot of questions from our participants. However,
I'm sure we do.
Yes, and we will be taking all the questions in the end. Now I would like to welcome our next speaker for the day, Mr. Sandeep Hundre. Mr. Sandeep Hundre is our quality manager, and he has 10 years of hands-on experience in quality control and quality assurance in industries such as pharmaceutical, animal nutrition, and feed. He has worked closely with processes like QMS implementation, vendor assessments, HACCP, QC development, and new product development. Welcoming Mr. Sandeep Hundre.
I hope my screen is visible.
Yes.
Yeah. Good afternoon and a warm welcome to all the attendees of this webinar. So as the webinar's name itself says, precision nutrition. To provide the nutrition, what we should have is a precision manufacturing facility. And that's what we have in India. By Tron Nutrition, this state-of-the-art facility has been installed in Jadcherla in Telangana state. So the quality of the trace nutrition what we have is IntelliOpt. We'll start with what we have as a QMS system in our processes is Nutrace Plus. Under the Nutrace Plus, the 5 pillars we have to control the overall manufacturing processes, which starts with the procurement of ingredients. So what we do with procurement of ingredients means is approval, it's assessment of all our vendors, suppliers of ingredients, and our stakeholders in the supply chain. So we go at the end up to the manufacturers. So for us, manufacturers are also important along with our suppliers to assess them with respect to the required parameters, with respect to the quality program they have, the monitoring program they have, and accordingly, when the assessment is completed, we are ready to include that ingredient into our manufacturing. So let me start with our raw material area of the manufacturing facility. So this is the unloading bay. What we have is basically a completely machine operated unloading station. So minimal manual work force is required to handle the bags. As the raw material has been received, this raw material is been verified with respect to the assessment. That is, the unloading supervisor will verify the manufacturers, the suppliers as per the system, and also the quality person will check upon the certificate of analysis for the particular ingredient. Once the material is approved for unloading, it has been unloaded into our warehouse. And as you can see here, The warehouse is having spacious arrangements to cater the needs of the process. That is, once the material has been received, it has been kept into various storage locations. What do we have? By the name is quarantine, approved, issued to production, and rejection. So once the material has been unloaded, the quality control will withdraw the samples as per the sampling plan, and it's been tested for the required parameters to be checked upon. Once the quality control approves, the material has been taken into the system by doing the GRN, and barcode labels are printed. The barcode label or the coding of the ingredient is an important aspect to keep our end-to-end traceability. Yeah. So what we can see here, the labeled ingredients, what we have kept here are coded with the barcode, and this barcode is then unique for that ingredient itself with the batch number. So as you can understand, that individual batch numbers will help us determining the source of the ingredient as well as where it is being used into the complete process. So moving ahead into the warehouse. So this is the look what we have for our warehouse, and accordingly we have the cold room facility to be used for storage of temperature sensitive ingredients, most probably known as the vitamins. So the cold room has been employed here by our facility to store the heat sensitive ingredients, where the storage temperature will be below 22 degrees Celsius. So as you can see here, we have our strength with respect to the storage of ingredients and been monitored day in day out for any kind of deviations as such. And this is a very important factor to monitor the aging of the product, so that the product will be used freshly into our operation or into the production. Next, we'll go upon the production facility. So our production starts with intake of ingredients. Once the manufacturing order has been created into the system generates a batch to be taken for the production. What do we have here is the intake station. So once the start go is given for that particular batch, the material which is required will be issued to the production and is been brought up into this 8th floor or the topmost floor of our tower. Herein, the operator basically fills up the silos. So this is the station where the bags are handled manually, and according to that, we have the intake stations which are equipped with sieves and magnet to remove any kind of physical contamination or ferrous contaminants into our ingredients. Yeah, and the very important aspect here is all these intake stations are equipped with the barcode scanner and an HMI to know what kind of ingredient has been filled in what bins. So the alignment is very important, that correct ingredient gets dumped into the right bin. So when the operator scans the barcode, which I told you earlier in the labeling, so when the operator scans the barcode, the system will open the particular bin and allows the operator to dump that particular ingredient into the right bin. And this is how the cross contamination of the ingredients has been ruled out, and ensured that the process or the ingredients which are required for the manufacturing is been dosed properly. So all these storage bins are stainless steel to prevent any kind of interaction with the ingredient. Yeah, so this is what our intake stations are. And then what we can see here are our weighing systems. So for the precision nutrition, what we should require is to have a precision weighing system. So these weighing system within tolerance limit of 0.02% of the target weight are very accurate and precise for the weighing of the ingredient, as the weighing is a very important factor in manufacturing of premixes, where a slight increase or decrease in the nutrient levels will affect the end user, that is our animals. So according to the weight, we have 3 weighing systems. One is micro, as the name says, micro ingredients which are below 10 kgs are weighed, and above 10 kgs we have up to 100 kgs we have another weighing system, and above 100 kgs up to 1 ton we have third weighing system. So the attention is given very important to our weighing systems, which is very important for having the right ingredient into the formulation. Next, what we'll go with the main weighing system and our control room. So let me explain you about the final weighing hopper, wherein the final batch has been verified and which is allowed into the mixer. So the final verification of the ingredients which are dosed from all these weighing scales or weighing system has been brought into one single hopper, where it has been verified by the SCADA engineer or the production operator to be allowed to get mixed. Also, we have an manual intake station. This allows us to have any kind of customization with our product or as per the customer needs. Let me show you our control room station. So all the production process is a centrally controlled system where all the data right from the ingredient intake to the dispatch has been recorded. So all the ingredients which are been used into the production, as they are labeled with the barcode, the identity has been recorded about what ingredient is been dumped in what station and how much is the weight of the product, what is the transfer time taken to the mixer, and what is the mixing time, how many bags are produced. So this is the part of what our SCADA is done. So the SCADA with the help with the backup server basically keeps the data intact for any kind of future references for our product. Next, we'll go to our mixing area. So what we have here is the heart of the process, the mixer. Our mixer is a Buller mixer of single shaft pedal mixer, and very important to this is having high efficiency of mixing. The CV of our product or the mixing of the batch is below 2%. What we have validated with our methodology for premixes, the CV of the product is below 2%. That is what is very important, as the homogeneity plays a vital role in giving the right nutrition to the feed millers. Coming down to our sieving area, once the mixing is done, there will be a final sieving of the product to prevent or to remove any kind of physical contamination from the process machinery, if any. So the sieving is a centrifugal sieve, which basically sieves out any kind of lumps or physical contamination. So the end product will be free from such contaminants. Moving ahead, we'll take you to our packing station. So this is the state-of-the-art bagging machine what we have here, and one of a kind in the premix industry. Here, the complete process is automated. As you can see from top to bottom, there are minimal human handling of the product, and same is done with our packaging as well. So once the batch has been received by the packing machine, the packing machine start packaging, weighing of the target weight, the required packaging size, the bag is filled. During filling itself, the machine automatically withdraws the sample, the required sample in the required frequency or the interval, like after 10 bags or 20 bags, to have a uniform sample from the product and right results to be given out for release of finished good. So what we can see here is an automated bagging machine. I will just take you to a video which shows us the operation of the bagging machine. So So the bagging machine basically deals with the packing, sealing of the bags, stitching, and automatic palletizing. Here is the video which shows the complete operation of what our bagging machine does. I hope the operation has been found informative to you all. So moving ahead, what we have here is the finished goods storage area. Once the packaging is done, the sample has been taken by the quality control, has been analyzed with the laid parameters and the required specification, as per the required specification. So once the quality approves the product, it's been dispatched from the FG dispatch area here, what we can see. So the complete process starts from the raw material intake to the finished good is completely been monitored via the barcoding system at every stage and been sampled at various stations to determine the quality parameters and the required as per the required specification. So this is the facility what we have to manufacture to give us the precision nutrition for the use. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandeep. And now the floor is open for questions. We have been receiving quite a lot of questions. However, just in case you have missed on asking the question, you can still type in your question on the chat box and we will be able to see it and ask the questions. For the question and answer, our panelists are Ms. Alice, Mr. Sandeep, our speakers. Joining them will be Dr. Sabiha Qadri, our technical head. Our first question is for Ms. Alice. The question is, does it make significant difference between usage of inorganic and hydroxy trace minerals as far as friction at dye level is concerned?
Yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah, I saw that was from AJ. So with regards to friction at the dye, generally that's more impacted by moisture in feed and other parameters. So no, we're not talking about that for this application. No.
Thank you, Alice.
We do have other products that can help with that, but not this one. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Alice. Next question is how to assess stability constant of hydroxy minerals?
Yeah, okay, nice question. Thank you, Dr. Rakesh. So basically with the hydroxy minerals, we generally assess the stability by the amount of a free trace mineral that we see in a dissolved solution. So I know that in the organic industry, they focus on bond strength, for example, to compare the different sources. But because our product has a totally different structure, it's assessed in a different way, as I'm sure you've thought. So generally, we'd look at the dissolution of our product in a reducing pH solution, because the pH is the only thing that's going to reduce the stability. So we know that our product is going to remain stable in our feed until the pH reduces, and then we start to see some trace minerals being released, which is which is where the animal needs it in the small intestine.
Thank you, Alice. Another question. Which mineral requirement we should follow per kg of feed or per kg live weight for better performance?
Thank you, Dr. Rakesh. Yeah. So from my perspective, I see a huge variation in the trace mineral levels used in different markets. Talking in general, I would say that you have two ways of looking at it. When you're switching to a highly bioavailable source of trace mineral, you can either switch from the same level as the inorganics and get more performance because you're getting more benefit from the extra bioavailability, or you can use the kind of replace and reduce scenario to get the same performance for less inputs. So I don't know, Sabiha, if you wanted to talk more from an India point of view of what you are recommending to your customers in terms of levels.
Okay, thanks, Alice. So mostly the recommendations are in terms of the per kg feed, but like as Dr. Rakesh was mentioning, I think the more genuine ones would be to do for per kg of live weight.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. And another question again for you, Alice, and Dr. Sabiha. How to convert the dosage recommendations provided for inorganic minerals to organic or hydroxy minerals?
Yeah. I think I'll just reflect what I said in my previous answer again. Really, I think really if you replace at the same level as inorganics with a highly bioavailable source, you're going to get better performance. So that's where I was showing you those trials before. We saw those big return on investments. But if you reduce, you can then take into account the relative bioavailability and get the same performance, but with lower inputs, if you like. So yeah, Sabiha, feel free to add to that answer.
Yeah, so we have seen from various trials and also over the years that a lot of research has been conducted. We have seen that the organics and the hydroxy have better bioavailability than the inorganics, which relates that lesser dosages of these components of these forms can be used when compared to the inorganics. And like Alice was mentioning, it all then pins down to the relative bioavailability, how much percentage you want to take it based upon the trials that have been conducted with those specific components, and then take a call accordingly. For example, in our hydroxy case, we have seen that 140 to 150%. So you can safely go down by 50% of the dosage recommendation from the inorganic. For organics, again, very difficult to comment because of the different composition of the ligands that are being used. So if it's going to be a good ligand with a good stability constant, then again you can go for 50% of the dosage from that of the inorganic. Thanks.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Dr. Sabiha. We have one question for Mr. Sandeep. The question is, what are the QC measures that are followed for IntelliOpt?
So the required quality control parameters is basically the physical parameters, which are very important for all the ingredients, as it denotes to the mixing. Apart from that, we also monitor the heavy metals, other undesirable substances such as the microbial contamination for the carriers or dioxins and other labels. But with respect to the organic and the IntelliBonds, we have a set parameters. Again, it's as per the Intel process.
Thank you, Sandeep. We also have a question in daily segment. Ms. Alice and Dr. Sabia, if, any insights that we can provide on hydroxy minerals in dairy?
Well, obviously, with the ruminant, we have a slightly different situation because we have the presence of the rumen, obviously. So we not only are trying to supply the trace minerals to the animal, but also we're trying to keep the bugs happy in the rumen. So our big story in the ruminant segment really is when you are using the sulfate. So let's remember the image I showed in my presentation of the copper sulfate going into solution. We see this has a really negative impact, these reactions on the contents of the rumen, the microbes in the rumen. So by feeding a product with lower levels of reactivity, we can more effectively maintain the rumen microbe population, which will in turn have a positive impact on fiber digestibility in the diet. So we've done a lot of work looking at NDF digestibility in the presence of different trace mineral forms. And we see this has a direct impact on fiber digestibility because we are maintaining a better ruminal population. That's another webinar, I think. Sabia, anything to add from you?
No, I think pretty much covered everything. So I think the IntelliBonds or the combination of IntelliBond plus Optimin, which is IntelliOpt, can be safely used in the ruminant diets.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Sabia. And we have an influx of lot of questions. I will try to cover all of them. So we'll take one more question. The question is, what is the impact of our product on broiler breeder egg production and hatchability?
Okay, so we are working in this area this year. So we have a number of trials that we have worked on and will be releasing in the next couple of years, specifically on this topic, Dr. Prasanna. But we have looked in depth into the layer segment, and we see positive impacts based on the extra bioavailability on eggshell quality and eggshell number. I think really those are the main factors we have seen so far. But watch this space because we are doing a lot more work on hatchability because we see this as a very important area. I think the thing we need to remember is that trace mineral nutrition is very simple. You just need to fulfill the animal's requirements and make sure you're tracking that requirement through the production cycle. Now, broiler breeders will have a higher requirement, and you need to be sure that you're feeding that from a highly bioavailable source. So I think in reality, there's a bigger impact of the level just as much as the source. But obviously the level is impacted by the source because we get more bioavailability. Anything to add, Sabia?
No, I think we're fine. We need to be judicious in giving the form of trace mineral in breeders specifically because they have a greater say on the hatchability. So feeding the right level and the right form is very important.
Thank you. And we are running short of time, so we'll take just one last question. The question is, what about molecular size comparison for organic and hydroxy combinations against glycinates, considering solubility absorption of mineral?
Very good question. Good. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Rakesh. Now, this is where the story that we, the information that we present to the market is slightly different to some of our competitors. I know that some of our competitors talk about, oh, you need to have small molecular size in order for the molecule, total trace mineral molecule to pass through the small intestine and get into the bloodstream. Now, we have worked a lot with many academics in the market, such as Dr. Steve Leeson. We have lots of published papers looking at the mode of absorption of the mineral. And we see that actually, because the size, the actual molecular size of the product makes absolutely no difference to the absorption, because the only thing that's being absorbed is the divalent ion. So when you look at the biochemistry of it all, the divalent ion, the Cu2+ or the Zn2+, is the only form it's absorbed in. So as trace mineral nutritionists, the only job we are doing is binding the trace mineral to a sufficient ligand to get it to the small intestine where it needs to be absorbed, at which point it can release. We are not making small molecular sizes to get it across the bloodstream. We are literally just getting the trace mineral to where it needs to be in the small intestine in order to be absorbed. So we don't really talk about molecular size in the same way that others do.
Thank you so much, Alice, and thank you to all our panelists. But that was the last question, and I know that we are still receiving a lot of questions. However, we will get back to each of you individually, considering the shortage of time. Thank you. So now it is time to close now, but before we close, I would like to thank all the speakers for the insightful presentations, and to all our participants for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us, and to all the team members who have supported us. We can be reached at the email ID that is displayed on the screen, but for all the latest updates, please follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and our website. Until next time, good evening all, and have a great day. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.